I'm hearing my own music, guys. Hey, guys, look, welcome to another episode of Real Women Atlanta Live. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you for being with us. And I'm telling you, we've got an amazing show today. You will be glad that you're with us today. Help me to welcome my co-host, Miss Deidre Gary. Hey, Deidre.
Hi there. Hey everyone. It's a great day in the neighborhood. The sun is shining. Look at that. Awesome. We've been having a lot of rain, haven't we?
We have. I think we needed it though.
We do. I love the rain.
Yeah, I do too. Listen, Deidre, we have I met this our guest, man, probably 15, 16, I don't know. It's been years ago. And then you met her last year. I think you met her last year at one of the events that we hosted with Real Women Atlanta magazine. Awesome, wonderful, powerful, just an amazing woman and friend. And so I want to welcome our guest today, Ms. Cheryl Board. You are an amazing woman. Welcome to Real Women Atlanta Live.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Listen,
I'm just humbled by just your description. I mean, we have been friends and colleagues for a long time and been through ups and downs and stuff. So I'm honored that you asked me to be on the show.
Listen, let me tell you, those that are listening in today, I just got to tell you, we all go through trials. We all go through tribulations. We've all had some valley times, and we've been on some mountains. But sister, your story is extraordinary. I want to almost jump right into this thing, because I don't even think an hour is long enough. But we're gonna make it work. I want you to at least start by introducing yourself. Just give a little bit about Cheryl Board, who you are, what you do, and then we're gonna go from there.
Okay. I'm Cheryl Miles Board. I've lived here in Rockdale for 18 years, coming from New York, but growing up in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. I graduated from NYU University with a bachelor's degree and went into corporate America, just like about anybody else. Got married, had 3 children. And then my first husband, unfortunately, got into drugs. And so, oops, see, that's called a makeup malfunction. But getting involved with that, I ended up getting a divorce under domestic violence situations, packing up my 3 children and just going to any place that I could go to. Years later, I met my second husband. We got married, living in New York, just following day-to-day life, and moved here to Atlanta shortly thereafter. Then still working corporate America. And one night, riding home from a drive to New York and back, got into a car accident. And there were repercussions from that, which I guess we'll get into a little bit later. And that accident had only given me a 20% chance to live, and I lost a daughter. I had a tracheotomy at the accident site. I had 9 broken ribs. Both my lungs had collapsed. I had a lacerated liver, torn stomach, broken pelvic. I fractured the T5 and 6 in my back, the C1 and 2 in my neck, which is attached to the brain stem. I had a head trauma injury. I broke my shoulder, my wrist, and my ankle were all crushed. And God kept me here.
Now,
I was in a coma for 6 weeks.
you were in a coma for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
In a coma for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. So almost every bone in your body was broken.
Yeah. We had a joke about it that I broke more bones but didn't break a fingernail.
Oh,
My nails were still long.
wow. But okay. In a coma for 6 weeks. And you mentioned that in the accident, you lost your firstborn.
Yes.
Your firstborn. So your daughter dies at the scene of the accident.
Yes.
You're in a coma for 6 weeks, which means that you don't even know
what's happened.
Walk us through that.
You know, I don't talk a whole lot about being in the state of a coma, but I do get flashbacks, and I do remember looking up and just seeing a lot of people around me. And when I say a lot of people, I don't mean just the people that were in the room. I mean like swarms of people, like the room was jam-packed. And they were all just looking down at me. And I have memories of my husband talking in my ear. I ended up finding out later that he told me that if I died on him, he'd kill me anyway. But I remember being taken back into surgery. You just have glimpses. The stories about the light, I didn't have necessarily one of walking towards a light, but I had light shining on me. And when I saw all of these people, there was like a light in the center, and these people were all crowded around the light. And finally, when I awoke, I had the tracheotomy, so I really couldn't speak. And the first thing was, where are the kids? How are the kids? And the doctors did not want anyone to tell me that Laura had died because I still wasn't out of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working at Grady Hospital at the time, and they had airlifted me to Atlanta Medical. My job as a project manager was helping hospitals get new equipment and things like that. And I knew I had just restocked Grady's trauma center. So I kept saying, move Laura to the trauma center, move her. I want her there. I know the doctor's there. And and they told me they would handle it. But I did not know for at least another 4 or 5 days that she had not. They told me she was in the next room. And so I just kept trying to push for her to be moved to Grady. And then that's when they told me. And, I stopped for a moment, and I remembered our conversation in the car, which was kind of a private mother-daughter kind of moment. She was a couple weeks from her 21st birthday, and she was supposed to go meet up with a boyfriend while we were in New York, and she didn't get to. And I ended up kind of laughing to myself and saying, my baby left this earth and didn't get to do the one deed she was going to New York to do. You try to find that moment that just doesn't break you down. And then after everybody realized I knew what was happening, that's when I had that breakdown moment. So.
Wow. I know people go through this more than we know. But I can't imagine what it's like dealing with an ordeal with what you yourself is going through, and then to learn that you've lost a child.
Yeah, and like I said, the body itself was pretty badly broken. So I was dealing with being told that, I'd never be able to wear heels. I'd probably have difficulty walking. Arthritis was going to set in very early. Um, there was they had to give me brain cognitive tests because I did have a head injury. So there was a lot of therapy that was going to come after this. And I then knew I wasn't able to attend my baby's funeral. And I think that was the hardest lump to swallow, forgetting the therapy, forgetting to walk again, that I just couldn't say that final goodbye. And that's the part that you have to swallow, and you sit there and you know, what could I have done differently? What would have changed if I had done, those split second stuff that, and I don't really have a whole lot of memory of the accident itself, other than knowing that the back tire blew and Laura was driving. And that the thing of it is we were 15 minutes from home. We had driven 13 hours from New York, and we're 15 minutes from home, and this happens. And so you sit there with all kinds of scenarios going over in your head. But to God be the glory. My family, my friends, my colleagues, like I said, I think the visions that I had were them praying. All my family was on prayer lines and prayer calls and all of that. Family flew up from St. Thomas, from all over, just to be there, and just try to get my morale through it. And then the recovery, like I said, it was so painful even to sit up. They would have to put me in a type of chair that they had to crank me up to start to teach me how to sit up again. And they would only do it for like 15 minutes, an interval time. And like after 5 minutes, I was begging for them to lay me back down because the pain was so excruciating. And then so I went from being in that kind of a wheelchair. Well, first of all, they made this like tortoise shell that to give my body support. And so I was wrapped in this cast. And then going through from the crank up wheelchair to a regular wheelchair to a walker to crutches, a cane, and then finally to be able to step out without anything. And the joke is now I'm always in heels again. So prove them doctors wrong, because God has the answer. He knew I had to be back in my heels, So, but still, it was just going through all of that. And my mom moved in with us for a while, to help out. And my husband, he would put me in the wheelchair to take me out, just to say, you've got to get out of the house. And all of these teeth were gone. They were all broken, and my hair was all chopped up because of the head trauma injury and all of that. And I would tie a scarf on my head and talk with my hand over my mouth. And we passed the frozen food section in the grocery store, and my scarf had come off. And I said, sweetheart, why didn't you tell me how bad I looked? And he said, baby, he says, you're alive and you're here. He said, so I don't care what people may think you look like, but to me, right now, you're the most beautiful thing in the world because you're here.
Wow.
And, you say you love your husband or your spouse, but that statement alone, like, just made me fall in love all over again,
Wow.
Yeah. God put us together. So it was, and we ended up finding out why a lot later, but
So, okay. What I want our listeners and viewers to understand is um God has purpose for everything that he does.
Oh yeah.
Um your story does not end there.
Oh no. Far from it.
Um tell us what happened a couple of years or so later.
2 years later, my youngest daughter was getting ready to graduate from high school. Actually had graduated. And she was, kind of going through, her big sister wasn't here, and just decisions about what she wanted to do. And so she was a little kind of scared. And she was just talking about, Mom, Laura was just so focused, and I don't know what I want to do, and stuff like that. And as the days progressed, her behavior started getting a little strange. She was talking in metaphors and, like, I am me and you are you. And, so she was always kind of a jokester and stuff. And I'm like, okay, what are you leading up to? What's going to happen that I need to know about?
Mm-hmm.
And we were both seeing a psychologist because of the death of Laura.
Hmm.
So I called him and I told him, let me bring her back in because I think she needs to talk to somebody. And after he talked to her, he said, no, I want you to take her for a CAT scan. He said, something just kind of isn't right. And brought her back home, made the appointment. And when we were getting ready to leave, I was like, come on, sweetie, let's go. She was ready to walk out of the house, literally half dressed. I
Hmm.
mean, like with no pants on, and she thought everything was fine. And I'm like, come on, sweetie, where's your pants? What? And she went and put them on, and we went to the hospital. And she kind of wasn't that nice to some of the people in the waiting room. And they said no, they weren't going to take her for a CAT scan. They wanted to check the fluid in her spinal cord. And so they took her into the emergency and they did that, and it was slightly murky. So they started running tests because they knew something was wrong. And she had a form of encephalitis, which later we found out was meningococcal meningitis. So she had a swelling of the brain. And that's a virus that the three of us could be in the same room and none of us will be affected, but the fourth person that comes in the room, it will affect them by some way or means. And she was affected with it. And so Newton Hospital transferred her to Emory Hospital. And they started running all kinds of tests. And there really, because it's a virus, there really isn't a cure, but they give like antibiotic cocktail to help with the symptoms because she ended up starting to have seizures and stuff until the swelling of the brain could go down. And she was actually getting better from the encephalitis. And she had a seizure, and they gave her 10 milligrams of Amidate, which is an anti-seizure medication. And they were only supposed to give her 1 milligram. And when they realized what they had done, they gave her a saline solution shot to flush out the additional medication. Well, we found out that the additional medication really wasn't so much what harmed her because of her weight and size. It still would have not been lethal. But the Band-Aid of antibiotics that they give, it elevates your sodium levels, which gives your kidneys a problem with functioning. Well, when they gave her the saline solution, that elevated the salt levels more and made her go into cardiac arrest. And she had a blood clot from laying in the bed, which traveled to her heart. And 2 years after Laura had passed, Emilicia passed away at age 18. So I had now lost my 2 daughters.
2 out of 3 kids.
2 out of 3. Yeah, well, actually, I had been blessed. My when I remarried, my husband had a daughter, so she became part of our family as well. So it was 3 girls and 1 boy. But my 2 birth daughters, yes, had passed. And because I couldn't do anything for my first daughter's funeral, I had to do it all. I had to, plan the funeral, find what she was going to wear, what hymns were going to be played, all of that. I would not let anybody do it. And I then had to, and I sat there and I was like, dear God, what did I do in my life that was so terrible that not only did you take one, but now you've taken another? And you sit there and you blame yourself and I was looking for a hymn or a poem to put on the back of Emilicia's program. And God took me to a poem which was called A Conversation Between God and a Parent.
Mm.
And the poem says that our children are angels only on loan to us for a moment. And don't be upset with me if I should call that angel home sooner than you think that I should. But know out of all the thorns in life's lane, I've chosen this angel to learn from you. So never think it's what you do wrong. It's what you do right.
Mm.
And once you've completed the task I need you to complete, I can then call that angel home to do the job I need them to do. So walk this walk with me.
Mm.
And that gave me my solace to prepare her the rest of the way and to realize that God kept me here out of that accident to prepare her for one thing. And the other part of my history is that I've always taken children in. I've been a foster parent and a guardian to quite a few other children. And it's almost as if my girls knew that they weren't going to be here because they each brought a child into our house that we adopted and raised. So, it was just like they were bringing their replacements in almost. And
Wow.
so we had to prepare her for her homegoing. And that was the next step that we had to take.
Woo, Jesus. I've got one daughter. I'm almost at a loss for words, and I've heard your story before, and every time I hear it, it just it touches me. Every time because we tend to take life for granted. We tend to take, we just tend to take life for granted. Yesterday morning, when I got up at 5:00 for the prayer call, there was somebody that was one of the other people on the call who was complaining about it being so early and being tired and that sort of thing. And I remember hearing God say, breathe in, now breathe out. And when I did that, what came to mind was, I'm alive.
Yeah.
We get up every morning with our own agenda, and we tend to take things like that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to take for granted that we've got our right mind, that we've got our vision, our health, we got the, mobility of our bodies, that God kept us the day before from accidents and incidents in our lives. And I mean, we tend to take those things for granted, not knowing or not thinking that at any moment or any time.
Mm-hmm. And
Woo.
also, I know when me and you, Cheryl, had a conversation at that last event, and I heard this, for the first time myself, and I shared with you that very, very one of my childhood best friends I grew up with had just experienced that with her teenage daughter, and it definitely hits home in so many ways, especially when you have children. And I just want to know, I look at her name is Dorian. And I said, I watched her through the whole ordeal. She kept a smile on her face. She was as strong as she possibly could be. People were flooding her because it was such a big issue. The news was there, a lot of different things. And I watched her the whole time. And I said to myself, I wouldn't have been able to do this. I would have not been able to just that type of strength, and to hear your story and to see what she did and how you all had to endure. However, there's an aftermath when everything is done.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about that?
I think the aftermath or the lesson is that you start soul searching, and I have to admit that I was on a phone call one day, and it was actually a prayer call, and I had then started my nonprofit, which was in memory of the girls, and so I was doing things in the community and stuff like that, but I still didn't know what I was marching to, I guess. And God put in my ear one day, and he said, don't you realize you're a preparer? You are that person that is supposed to help prepare people for the gifts that I have for them. That, people are going to come to you, whether it's to the next step for their business, or how do they get past the grief, or how does it, and that's what your position is in this earthly kingdom, where you can be that source to give them the information or the comfort that they needed. I'm an only child. I have no siblings. So I always love having loving people, prayerful, people around me. And so with that, it was like the light bulb went off, and I started realizing why I did certain things. It's like I was already doing it, but I just didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's asking for help when you need it. Like I said, I was seeing a psychologist because, again, being an only child, I wanted that family. I wanted that, household full of noise and all of that. And I didn't understand that I was only supposed to have it for a certain season. But that noise would change because other children brought it and other individuals brought it. So I still had that, but it was now serving more people than just the ones that I gave birth to. And I think that's how I continued to walk. Charmaine talks about how long we've known each other, and she's seen me weather people saying negative things because they just don't know or just don't understand. And she goes, but you don't get upset about it. You don't retaliate. You don't. And I go, because that's not my role.
Mm-hmm.
No,
God will handle them. God will handle them.
Good. I do.
Yeah.
I'm your Peter. I cut that ear off. Okay.
But truly, you learn what your steps are,
Mhm.
and you learn that yes, it's okay if he and Charmaine's heard me say this many times, that he carries you through the sand, that let it be his footprints that are seen and not yours.
Mm.
You know.
All right. I feel like I don't know if you guys have ever driven a manual car, like a 5-speed or whatever. I feel like we're shifting to another gear. Um, because it doesn't end there, Cheryl.
Doesn't.
Um, all right. So now bring us into the next 2-3 years.
Well, okay, so we lost Laura in 2003. We lost my dad to leukemia in 2004. I lost my youngest daughter in 2005. And then in 2006, my mom gets diagnosed with cancer, and I lose her in 2007. Okay, and then 2010 rolls along, and then I get diagnosed with leukemia or pre-leukemia. Because both my parents had passed from it, I started getting tested on a regular basis. And lo and behold, like genetics, I ended up getting it as well. But because of the testing, I was able to catch it at a very early stage. But then a battle of almost 15 months of going through chemo treatments and all of that, that I had to battle that. And at the end of the beginning of 2012, I got told that I had beat it and that I would just have to keep coming for the testing to see that I stayed in remission. So it ended up being transfusions and dealing with transfusions that had to be medication had to be given beforehand, and because the leukemia, of course, attacks your bloodstream, and so doing that and the chemo treatments and back and forth to the hospital every week to sit there for 4 hours and take a treatment and then go home and be sick for 24 hours. And only the people closest to me knew that I was going through it, because the day after the treatment, when my levels went back up, I was back out there being Cheryl. So it meant working my nonprofit, working politically in the community, working with other nonprofits as well, and just doing me. And
So,
then, mhm,
so you lose your oldest daughter. You lose your father. You're an only child.
I am.
You lose your second daughter. You lose your mom.
Mhm. And then I lose my health.
And then you lose your health.
You do have that aha moment where you still go back again, literally to the altar, and say, God, I know you always say that you don't give anybody more than they can handle.
Yeah.
But I need you to remember, you only made me 5'1", and you didn't give me shoulders like Joan Crawford that stick out to here, So can you ease up a little bit somewhere along the line?
Wow. I'm lost for words. I'm trying to even how. I mean, how do you get? I can't even imagine getting past the first couple of losses. Um, it's not like you have siblings that can help to um,
Help you through it.
help you through it. it's just you. And I mean, you have your husband and, but still, um, I'm trying to process this, and it's like, I trust God. I mean, I've got crazy faith. And I know that he does everything for a reason. I know that everything has been allowed by him because he's God. He has the ability to stop or change or redirect or anything because he's God. He knows the end from the beginning. He's God. And I'm just trying to process this thing. Um, okay, so it doesn't stop there.
Now, as I mentioned, my husband had a daughter, which I helped raise, and she was part of our life. And in 2012, she got sick, and she worked for a correctional institution in Maryland, because that's where she was living. And she was told she had bronchitis, and then she was told no, it was walking pneumonia. And then she was told it was double pneumonia. And after about a week in the hospital, we lost her. And she was a mother of 2 children. And so then we had my grandson decided to go live with his dad. But my granddaughter, her dad was deceased as well. So here it is, that part of my life that now I'm raising a 7-year-old, because now so all 3 of my daughters were now with God. And, you sit and you just, at that point, I hate to say it, but I had done it so much that planning the funeral, you're going through the motions like automatically. You just know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you just, you just do the best that you can. I had a lot of friends that were awesome, that truly, when I say that you can't always pick your family, but you can pick those friends that are ride and die, and they know who they are, and Charmaine being one of them. But you lean on them, and my husband, like I said, we were definitely put together by God. We had literally kept passing each other so many times and had never met because it wasn't time yet. I met him way after I had gotten divorced. And when we started talking, my ex-brother-in-law was his landlord, but we had never met each other. It was the strangest thing. But when I met him, he was always cracking jokes. And I used to say he's the biggest fool I had ever met in my life. But I didn't know how important that sense of humor was going to be. And, he kept me, he was the one that you're not going to be depressed. I'm not going to let you. We're going to do this together. And when the girls passed, it hurt him. You want that step parent that's going to love your children as much as you do. And he was definitely that type of individual. And he was my anchor. He kept me going. And he had sisters, and they were loving, and they were at my bedside from the time I had the accident, and they were there for every funeral and just kind of held me up. They were like, he would say, they don't call me anymore, they call you, so they just forgot about their brother and, just adopted you. And, but yeah, and they just kept me going. And that was, that and just knowing God had me was what took me each step of the way, because saying goodbye to Erin and knowing now that I had her daughter's life again, as my responsibility to do what she wasn't going to be here to do. That's another awesome, I don't want to call it a chore, but it is, because as much as you love doing it, it's now the next generation, even over the ones that you gave birth to, that you now have that day-to-day responsibility to do. And any grandparent that is a constant part of their grandchildren's lives on a daily basis, I think understands that.
Mm.
And you know, she's my chocolate drop. So I
And
just,
she's how old now?
she is 16 now.
Wow.
She is 16,
From
going
7
on
to
40.
16.
Going on 40. She thinks she's my boss, but that's okay.
Well, Cheryl, you know, I've been listening to everything. And as Charmaine said, you know, just speechless. You know, when I look at you, you know, I see, you know, what God made, what He transformed, and that He is alive and evident in our lives,
Yeah.
because I can look at you and see that as an
Oh, yeah.
example of that. With all the pain, all the valleys, everything that you have experienced, there was something that was birthed out of this pain. Can you talk to us about, through all of those, everything that you have endured, what was birthed out of this pain?
It birthed me to know my purpose. It birthed me to understand why I got saved through the accident. It made me understand why I beat the leukemia. It made me understand that, you know, it's sort of, you know, the story when he tells the devil, you know, do what you will to her, but don't touch a hair on their head, on his head. And that's truly how I felt, that God was like, throw the worst at her, because there is a plan that I have for this person.
Wow.
And I feel that, you know, when you go into that quiet place and you have your conversation with him, truly, totally, and you listen, that's when he really said, you are that person that is the preparer. And that's why, you know, it's the old toy for the kids, what, weebles wobble but they don't fall down.
Mm.
You know, there's plenty that have come and still come and probably will continue to come. But as long as I trust and believe in what God has said to me and what I know He has done for me and brought me through, I mean, there is no reason that I shouldn't be in a padded white room somewhere just rocking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, He kept my sanity. He brought me back to life. He cured my illnesses. I mean, when we talk about His glory, I mean, we have to look at even just that He does, like He wakes you up daily. That's the biggest thing, that I'm able to wake up every morning and be able to breathe and to be able to have the conversation with someone who needs me to have it, you know, and not to run away, or to know to someone and just say, I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. I don't care what time, you know, whatever it is. If it's just an ear, if you need to pray, if you need to just have a presence, you know. I have one dear friend, and I call her my giggle sister. And unfortunately for her, I hadn't set foot back in the hospital that she had to go in for her son. And, you know, I had to be there with her when she made the decision to turn machines off. And I was blessed enough, number one, that I could walk back into that hospital. God gave me the strength to be able to walk in there with her, because that was my mission, to know that I could. You know, and when somebody's wife passes or they buried a child, that I can, you know, we always say, when people say, I know how you feel, or they're in a better place. And at that time, that's not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But when you've got somebody that doesn't have to say a word because you already know the place that they're in, no matter the circumstance, whether it's a violent death or a premature illness or whatever it is, you just have to hold their hand and say, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I think he's put me here for that purpose, to be one of those on earth individuals that can take a person to the next plane and to help them understand. I quickly will say to anybody, don't worry, I've let Laura and Em and Aaron know to be there at the gates when your baby gets there. They're gonna be there to meet them at the gate. And that alone can give somebody so much solace to know that somebody is praying for someone to greet their baby there.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
and I do Operation Prom every year. None of my girls ever got to wear a wedding dress, but they all got to wear prom dresses. So I dress young girls who don't have the means to go to the prom. They get their hair done, their nails, they get to pick out a dress, the whole nine, and they get professional pictures taken. And every year there's one or two of them that I see my girls in. I see that spark or that laughter or whatever from one of them in the group every single year, and fall in love with that one, of course. But to watch those moms when they see their daughters come out in the gowns because they knew that they couldn't do that for them, that not only how the girl feels about herself, but how the mom feels, that is a feeling of euphoria that I get, and I get to enjoy every year. And so you find your moments that are perfect for you, and you grab hold on to them and you enjoy them, and you look to just be that person. Like I said, sometimes just being silent but being in the room is enough.
So, wow. I don't. I want to go here first. So you found your purpose. God has shown you. He's shown you or directed you to your purpose. And it's interesting because I know over the years I've seen you do Action Prom, and I never connected the two together, but now I understand. I understand why. Um, you are a community leader. You work with the Democratic Party. Matter of fact, you're the chair of the Rockdale County Democratic Party. Um, you also have a nonprofit that help other nonprofits with grants or even showing people how to even start a nonprofit. You do workshops, and I mean, you're a true community leader. And it's interesting. We kind of laughed and joked around earlier about people throwing stones or finding faults or criticizing or whatever you want to call it, and that happens quite a bit. I like to say that if you can do it better, then go ahead. Try, because a lot of times people don't understand what your motivation is, and even if there is a shortcoming where it may possibly come from, and understanding, and rather than sitting on the sideline criticizing, why not help?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You understand? Why not help? Because I can only imagine. I mean, it has been years now since you've experienced all of those things, but I can only imagine that there's still times when there could be one day out of the year, or there could be one day out of 3-5 years where this thing just hits you and it feels like a weight just comes. And so I'm now speaking to those that are listening. When you find people that have purpose on their lives, rather than criticize them, rather than criticizing, how about you find out what you can do to help?
Mhm.
You know, why don't you get in the game rather than standing on the sideline criticizing?
Mhm.
You know, the one thing, and you and I, we talked about this earlier, because like I said, I know your story. I know your story, but every time I hear it, it just impacts me in some way. There's so many people that are going through things even today, especially with this pandemic, and the people with financial issues, the people with health issues, the just issues. I don't know very many people or any at all really that have walked your walk, that have had your type of journey where there has been one loss after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And then, you know, you then are dealing with health issues yourself. And on top of everything else, I don't know anybody else in my life that have been through that. I want people to understand, one, God is real.
Oh
God
yeah.
is real. God is
Oh,
real. He's real. And two, be encouraged. Because while you're sitting back complaining about the little things that you're going through, and the Bible tells us that there will be trials, there will be tribulations, there will be these things that we'll have life experiences called life.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
While we're going to have those things, be encouraged. Look at somebody else's story. Look at somebody else's life. And I guarantee you that when you look, when they hear your story, Cheryl, they ought to say, well, thank you, God.
Mhm.
Because that could have been me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I thank you for the little stuff that I'm going through right now. I might have some, I don't know how I'm going to pay my light bill right now, but thank you, God, I didn't lose a child.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want people to be encouraged today. I want them to be encouraged. I want them to get over themselves. And like you said, God gave you purpose. So God, why am I going through this? What's my purpose? What's my purpose
Yeah.
in the midst of all this? That's
And
what I
it,
want.
if I can just kind of piggyback and add to that, to just kind of, you know, put the cherry on top of this, is the level of commitment. In everything that came your way, every storm, all the rain that you experienced, that seemingly seemed more than the sunshine at probably at the time that you were going through it,
Yeah.
you still said, let thy will be done.
Yeah. I mean, if you even if you have the faith of a mustard seed,
Mhm.
you've got to be able to say, I can't stop this. It's there's nothing that's going to change it.
Mhm.
And I don't care what your faith is or how big or how small it is. You've got to know that there's a divine power that's either going to help you through it,
Mhm.
or you choose to stay where you're at.
Mm.
So I always chose to believe that God was going to take me to the next step, because I needed to believe that. I needed to have the explanations that no one were able to give,
Mm.
you know, that only searching the word and searching prayer through him would give you. And that's solace. Um,
Mm.
that's the only way I knew how, you know. And it's not that I was raised, I mean, I went to Catholic school, you know, and it was more of a chore to go to mass than it was that you wanted to. But as I got older in my life, my faith started to grow,
Mhm.
and believe, and take part, and going into churches, and being a part of their ministry, and walking that walk. But and that's the other thing, when you start doing that walk, don't think that everything's going to be roses,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that's not going to happen either. You're going to have those. A matter of fact, you're going to have those trials even more because your faith is going to be tested. The enemy is going to come in. Something, somewhere, somehow is going to try to break you down and turn you in the other direction.
Mm.
And maybe it's because I was an only child that I figured I've got to do this because there's no one else that's going to help me through it. I don't know at that time what made me say I'm not going to turn away, but I didn't. And that's what I try to tell people now. And when it's darkest, don't turn away. Don't think you can do it by yourself. Don't think, there's a lot. I still, a lot of times when I am not, like those moments, like you said, Charmaine, when they come and they hit you, you'll say to me, I didn't talk to you today. And I go, yeah, it's just one of those days. A lot of people say, oh, you're smiling all the time. No, I'm not. I'm human. I break down. I feel when people say something negative. I feel because they don't know me or didn't take the time to get to know me. And things that happened in your identity, even knowing who you were as a child, the fight that's putting you or not putting you as a child. All of that plays into what happens to you later on or through your journey of life. And we have to use every piece of that. When the conflicts come right in your face.
Wow.
I know we're getting close to having, and Charmaine was right, we needed 8 more hours. Because let me tell you something, what I don't want to do is end it. But that, just as I was saying, God places different people here on earth that are angels like you, that will give us examples of true soldiers in Him who are committed and steadfast in who He is, what He is, and the purpose that is set forth for your life. And with everything that's going on, even now with this pandemic, there are a lot of distractions. There are a lot of, things in our journey that pushes us off, that are scheduled, and some that we create ourselves, However, in the midst of that, you've got to keep your vision and your focus. God gave me a word that said, you are stronger when your eyes are closed.
Yeah.
And when I hear, that's all I heard when I listened to your story, is that you are stronger when your eyes are closed, because that dependency, that commitment of no matter what may come or go. And yes, we are human. We do get in our own, feel, God, why this, what is going, but then it's just that snap back to be able to come back to what we're looking at today. I am inspired. I am just, I really don't have a lot of words to just describe right now what I'm feeling, but it gives me that extra when we give our testimony and we tell of these things and what's going, it gives you that extra, because you never know what a person is going through, what they're facing, or whatever level it may be, because something like the things that you've gone through is huge, and then it may be something I may be thinking as small as, well, Lord, I don't have any money for my roof. What am I going to do? It's leaking in here, but that's my level of where I'm at, maybe in my particular life or things of that such, but it weighs on me and it distracts me to keep me from the promise. Right. But when I look at you and I see that and I feel and I hear you overcoming, being a soldier and committed to what God has said and the promises that He has set forth. And then I get to see the manifestations of that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Okay. It's amazing. And I'm inspired. I'm truly.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is Deidre, is we're more than conquerors and we're overcomers.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. And our station manager is telling us that we have a caller on the line, and we're at the 2:00 hour. So, caller, if you are on the line, go ahead. You're live on Real Women Atlanta Live.
Hey, I am. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to really, really thank your guest for sharing her testimony, because it is so touching and so heartfelt. And I have been in a position recently where, I've experienced a lot of loss. And I know with the pandemic and everything that's going on, there are a lot of people that can really be fed by your word of perseverance and leaning on God in the midst of a lot of loss. And so I just really wanted to thank her from the bottom of my heart for that. I actually want to send this video, this show today, to friends of mine that I feel that could use it, just because you talk about extreme emotional, mental, spiritual endurance. And I feel like this is just a perfect example of that. So thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing this with us. And I'm just, God bless you.
Yes. Awesome.
Thank you.
If you will reach out to us, caller, our email address is realwomenatlanta@yahoo.com. It's realwomenatlanta@yahoo.com. We'll make sure that you get a copy of the show today, so that you could share it on your social media page or to whomever. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for calling in. And
not a problem. And I did have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And so she mentioned earlier that she has now, turned a lot of her efforts into her nonprofit, and that one of the nonprofits that she has actually works on helping other nonprofits get set up and running. And I'm kind of partnering with a ministry and a church right now and going through that process. Do you have any tips or any hints as to where they can or should start with that?
Well, let me answer for her. Her name is Cheryl Board. And I'm sure our guest Cheryl would love to speak with you. Cheryl, if you want to give, I know her email address is cherylboard@att.net. cherylboard@att.net. If you'll email her your information, she can then get in contact with you, and you guys can communicate. Cheryl, I answered for you, but go ahead. Go ahead and speak to the caller.
No, caller, I'd be happy to work with you. We are cut for time, but you do have my email address, and just send me contact information and we'll gladly talk and see how we can help each other.
And caller, when she says that she gladly will be, she'll be glad to help you. I mean, she's a woman of her word. She's helped so many with their nonprofits, and I appreciate that about her. She is committed to helping those that want to start nonprofits, and even those that already have, whether it's ministry or some other form of nonprofits. I've been able to witness her helping numerous people. So please take advantage of that. Her email address again is cherylboard @att.net. So get your information over to her, and you guys can talk today. All right.
Okay, I certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you again. And look, we're here every Saturday, 1:00. We've got some phenomenal guests coming ahead. So, tune in, stay tuned in with us. Cheryl, I want to say again, thank you for coming on our show. We really appreciate you telling your story. This story needs to be told over and over and over again. And I think I said to you years ago that there is a platform that God has for you to tell the story. I see it in the form of a book. I see you doing workshops and seminars and to help people to get through their tough times, whether it's a loss in life or something else. I see you encouraging people through what you've been through.
Yeah, the book is in progress, and the title is "The Night My Lights Went Out in Georgia." It starts the night of the accident, but it also goes into my background, as I mentioned before. It's talking about what happens to you as a child, and me realizing and knowing the difference about being as light as I am and with straight hair, and the struggles of being African American and looking like me. So,
Girl, you're black.
yes, girl.
Come on, Black Queen. That's that melanin, honey. We coming all
Okay.
shades.
Okay, that we know that,
Yes,
but dealing that we truly are a rainbow of races, and we have to embrace it.
Amen.
And the more of the browning of America comes through, that we have to just embrace what our children will always look like, and
Absolutely.
moving through that process. So.
Absolutely. Well, last thing I want to say is you get ready to be a grandma.
Yes, I am.
Your
Yes.
son.
My son.
Your
Yes.
son
Yes.
now.
And it's a boy.
And it's
And since they publicly said the name, it's safe for me to say it. It's Jaden Wakeem, and my son and his fiancee Megan. It's due the first week of October. So yes, and I'm a glam mom. Please, let's get it right. Let's get it right, girl.
I like that. I might have to use that. But I mean, you have other grandchildren from the
children that I've raised.
You
Yes.
adopted.
Yes.
And so, but this will be a new addition to your family. Again, thank you so much for coming on our show. Say hello to my brother, your husband. I love
will. I will.
Crazy as all.
And Cheryl, let's go shopping when this is over.
Oh, absolutely. Because if it ain't on a clearance rack, it's not going in my bag.
Yeah.
All right. So, guys, thank you so much again. For tuning in. What we try to do through Real Women Atlanta Live is to bring on some phenomenal sisters, some phenomenal Black women who've got some amazing stories that we can all learn from.
Charmaine, one last thing.
Yes.
Please, let's all remember, if you're not registered to vote, pull out your phone, go ahead and make sure you are registered, because we have 2020 is clear vision, guys. Clear vision, and we have to make sure that our visions are taken, and make sure that we do not have an orange individual sitting in the White House another 4 years.
That's good. And what about census?
Yes, also the 2020 census. My county alone, Rockdale County, is still only at 60%. And so we need to get those numbers up, because the dollars are really needed. I mean, when you think about, especially with the pandemic, our children need those dollars, our businesses need those dollars. So make sure that you have gone to Census 2020. It doesn't even take you 5 minutes to fill out those questions. Even if you lost the paper that you got in the mail, you can go to the website and fill it out. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure that if you are registered to vote, that you either early vote in person, or you make sure you get that ballot in the mail. Okay?
Awesome. Guys, that's very important.
And Cheryl, can you also give us your contact information for the viewers?
Sure. My email is Cheryl Board, BOARD, @att.net, just like Charmaine said. And I I've had this phone number for 15 years, so it's not going anywhere. 678-463-7725. If you've got a need of concern, if you just need somebody to listen, that's the number to call.
Awesome. And you can find her on social media, at least Facebook, Cheryl Miles Board.
Right. Connection
Cheryl,
Consultants.
Cheryl Miles Board.
Yes.
On Facebook.
My business is Connection Consultants. You'll also find that on Facebook. And my nonprofit is the Nonprofit Consortium.
All right. So look, our station manager is going to beat us with a whip. But we love him. Guys, thank you for joining us. Join us again, same place, same time, next Saturday, 1 o'clock, Real Women Atlanta Live. Deidre and I will be here. Again, thanks to our guest, Cheryl Miles Board.
We love you.
For joining us. And as always, Raheem, we love you. I can't
Look
even
at this heart, Raheem. Don't get it.
do it. But we love you, our station manager. Mwah. See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.